I'm Margaret Etke, Communications Director for the Beverage Industry Environmental Roundtable, and I'm joined today by Paul Bowen, who is the water and wastewater technology expert for the Coca-Cola Company. And Paul is also one of our original founding members of BIER. So we're catching up today on the recent spring roundtable meeting hosted by Heineken on May 8th through 10th at their facilities in Amsterdam. So Paul, given it's been a couple of weeks since the meeting now, what was the most memorable discussion or presentation from the meeting for you?
There were a lot of really good presentations, a lot of good discussion. As I look back through my notes to try to see, what really stood out. I think to me, what stood out was some of the work that Heineken is doing in their new commitments around water and making every drop count, so to speak. Forgotten exactly what their mantra is for 2030, but they have some very aggressive goals. And the way they're approaching that was really, I thought, unique to a lot of the way we've approached things in the past. And I think it really sets kind of a new bar for the way beverage industries need to think about water use and water conservation and water stewardship. I mean, they formed kind of a triangle that deals with stewardship, in other words, balancing the water that they use, efficiency, being as efficient as they can, and then circularity being, reusing what they can reuse in their processes. And that although many of us in BIER have talked about that, we've not put it together in the way that they have. So being a water guy, I think that was one of the things that just really stuck out as a way to move the needle forward.
I like it. Yeah, and I know Heineken put a lot of work into that new every drop count strategy too. So, and it's always good for, I think you hit the nail on the head here, Paul, too, that for BIER members to learn from each other and what they're doing as you all lead the way in best sustainability practices for the industry and beyond. Mm-hmm. So I know you mentioned that there was a lot of good discussion there, and there was certainly a lot to talk about. I think the agenda ranged from a wide variety of topics. I know there was discussions around greenhouse gas sector guidance, circular economy issues. Yep. That you heard a presentation from Water Aid about integrating WASH into global and local water strategies. You talked about some future scenarios, planning for climate change. Oh boy, yeah, and some best practice sharing, it looks like, from Beam Centauri, the package supplier data, Basin collaboration, you name it. So
there was a lot.
We always pack a lot into those 3 days.
And it was every topic was nothing was superficial. I mean, every topic went deep. Every topic touched on very on the heart of what was important in that topic. So it wasn't, here's a topic, let's just kind of talk about it across, at the 100,000 foot level. There was some drill down. There was some detailed discussion. There were good questions from a variety of people about how we should, move forward in different areas. And like you said, there was, greenhouse gas sector guidance. What are we going to do from a BIER perspective with respect to that? Because we've kind of led the way in developing that guidance. And then the whole thing around packaging, I mean, that's an area that BIER has, I don't want to say struggled with, but it hasn't been at our core attention. But yet we all deal with it, and we all deal with it in different ways. And we've got people like Beam Suntory and Diageo who almost exclusively deal in glass, and then you've got people like Coke and PepsiCo who deal, in aluminum and PET, and and then you've got some of the wine industries that are dealing in glass. I mean, there's such a disparity, and it's really one of the few times that it's one of the few issues that we haven't really been able to it's not come to a consensus, but we haven't been able to narrow a scope to an area that we really thought that we could, have some work. And I mean, it's just a very, very difficult issue for this group to tackle from a technical perspective, which has always been the focus of this group. So, yeah, that was a true challenge in looking at it. The whole thing with WaterAid. It was an interesting discussion. I'm not sure that it was one where there was, I think you could kind of see people figuring out, okay, so how do we really integrate this into our programs, and how do we make it work? And it it really goes back to having this as what Coke calls the golden triangle, which is where you have the public sector, the private sector, and then the social sector, all working together to make projects successful. And that's really where we have to focus if we're going to do some of the things that we want to do within those functions. And then of course we got into the whole stuff around some of the best practices of Suntory and some of the work they're doing around packaging, and some of the work that was some of the work that Beam is doing. So I mean, it was a 2.5 to 3 full days of very, very good discussions.
So all that being said, Paul, what would you say was the most lively discussion topic?
Probably the packaging.
Yeah. Okay.
Because people really, I mean, with a lot of the work that's being done by everybody to try to figure out this whole packaging dilemma around waste and packaging and recycling and how do you handle it. There was a lot of intense discussion, lively discussion around how we do this, how we move forward, what it does. And I think it kind of, at the end of the day, it was one of those, I don't say we didn't, we kind of decided to stay the course and maybe try to gather some data, but again, we had to kind of step back instead of being drilled down, really be high level with this particular one. Well, and there are already groups out there that are doing packaging issues that are much bigger, much broader than BIER.
Well, so speaking about BIER, and since we're all about collaborative action and cooperating together, competitors coming together around the same table, what stands out to you the most, Paul, from our work and or discussions at the meeting as embodying that spirit of collaboration and working on being better together when it comes to affecting our environment?
Good question. I think I really think it's, the basin collaboration
Mm-hmm.
effort is something that I think really is unique to our sector, because I don't know a lot of other sectors where competitors per se might be collaborating to help within a basin. And so I think that effort is really something that really speaks to what the group is doing, particularly when we look at the efforts that have been made around water conservation and water best practices and water stewardship. And so, I mean, that whole effort around trying to get, like I said, trying to really integrate this whole, go back to Heineken, the whole triangle of pieces into one sustainable type project is really been quite fascinating. And it's one of those that, we can't, it's very difficult to talk about sustainability in a watershed if you're not sustainable in your own facilities. And if you're not sustainable in your own facilities, and you're not conserving water, you don't have circularity of water, then, it all ties together. And so to me, that effort to collaborate within a basin to do some work, I think is really kind of embodies what I think this group is all about. And again, we're approaching it from a technical standpoint, and that again is the thing that I don't think probably externally BIER gets enough credit, because I think most people, if they know of BIER, they know of BIER for the benchmarking work,
right,
and that aspect, and they don't understand what the members bring to each other from a best practice sharing and a collaborative effort. I mean, I think I can probably go back and look at some of the things that we've done at Coke and say, yeah, well, I picked up this idea at a BIER meeting, or this other idea came from a BIER meeting, or this came from something that maybe Diageo was doing, or Brown-Forman was doing, or maybe this came from something Bacardi was doing, so, or AB or InBev, or, so all those things, they're just, it's that it's that building that collaboration through technical best practice sharing, is just what continues to stand out.
Well, speaking of things that stood out to you, I think that was a really good segue. It's almost as if you know my questions, Paul. What were your top 3 takeaways or learnings from this meeting?
Top 3. Well, I'll go back to Heineken's triangle. I mean, that just, again, that was something that was really, really quite interesting. The whole issue that we talked about with water aid, and how that involving them, and one of the things that I mentioned to water aid and tried, and that I think we have to move, and they were cognizant of it too, is we can't talk about beneficiaries, we can't talk about gallons, we have to talk about meeting a need, and that conversation around, we always talk about there were so many gallons replenished, or there were so many people benefited from a particular project, and that's important. but the real thing is, what's the progress we're making toward, sanitation goals and SDG 6 and some of these things? How is what we're doing moving that needle, and can we do more in those areas? And then, really, I think maybe the last thing was the whole thing around packaging, and the fact that we really decided that we wouldn't be looking at tools as much as just trying to focus on data. What data can we collect, and what data can we, what's the formatting? That if we start getting into tools, then we start getting into, we got to have a value associated with them. So, I think those were the three big ones.
Well, I'm sure you weren't necessarily taking copious notes for this part, but what did Heineken do as part of their beer experience for you all while you were in Amsterdam?
They were a fantastic host. First of all, the venue is a really good. They no longer brew in Amsterdam, and so it is held in their old brew house, which I actually visited almost 40 years ago as an undergraduate in college on a whirlwind European tour.
Nice.
And they were still brewing, so at that time in that building. So it was kind of interesting to go back and see that. But they were fantastic hosts. The venue was really, really nice. We got to go through the Heineken experience and see their museum and the story of Heineken, and there was dinner at a fantastic art museum, the Hermitage, which actually shares material and artifacts with the Russian Museum in St. Petersburg. So many stuff gets shared back and forth. They build collaborative exhibits. And it was just a fascinating exhibit to walk through and look at, and of course, a delicious meal. The venue for that, the museum itself, was gorgeous. Then we finished up the last day out of Amsterdam at their brew site, and unfortunately, I had to leave a little early that day to meet my wife. But it was that venue was a gorgeous venue set out close to their campus outside of Amsterdam. So they were excellent hosts. Again, they shared very openly what they're doing with their sustainability efforts. What they're doing. They had really good attendance and really good engagement by the number of people that they had attend. Of course, Paul Bowen and Ron were excellent hosts as well. So and then Amsterdam. Just a vibrant, very walkable city to hold a meeting in. So it was a quite nice. I found the meetings with Carlsberg in Copenhagen and then Heineken in Amsterdam have both been just delightful, because the cities themselves are very walkable, very friendly, and it's not. I'm sorry, you're not coming to Atlanta in this mass of traffic and humanity.
Well, and I think for anyone who follows you on Twitter, Paul, you had some very fun, I want to say, manhole covers, among other things, on your walking tours in Amsterdam that were quite fun to see. So it looks like you had a good time.
That's something that's kind of unique. I'm a member of a Facebook group that's Manhole Covers of the World. And I have friends that are manhole cover enthusiasts, and people do grave rubbings or tombstone rubbings. They actually do manhole cover rubbings, and so they carry with them the sheets of paper and the charcoal pencils and stuff like that. And they will, if they see one they really like, they'll take a picture and they'll stop and do a rubbing of it. So
I always learn something new about you, Paul, every time we talk. So that you're a manhole cover enthusiast. Got it.
Well,
That is amazing.
it's one of those things.
There you
It's
go.
part of it's part of the no water. Without water, we don't have many things that we have, and
Right.
so it's the no water, no beer, no water, no soda, no water, no coffee, no water, no alcohol. So we can't forget that.
Absolutely. Well, circling back on water, back to beer, is there, so first of all, Paul, I'd like to thank you for sharing your thoughts and giving us a little bit of an insider view into what went on at the roundtable meeting. Is there anything else that you would like to add or share from your experiences in Amsterdam at the beer roundtable?
Um, yeah, I'm glad you threw that in. Um, no, as always, it was a really good meeting. There's always this sense of cooperation, collaboration, willingness to share that you get at beer meetings. That I've been to a lot of meetings with a variety of competitors, and you just don't often see that collaborative effort and or feeling. So that was good. It's always good to see that. It's a very congenial group. I think there were a couple things that kind of struck me at this meeting. The group has changed. I mean, I think about I think back to goodness, I guess it was 2006,
Mm-hmm.
2007 when we had the first group. So we're going on, almost 14, 15 years. Many of those people are not there anymore. So, it's just an interesting to see, how the group has, changed. This is one of my last meetings. I've changed roles in the company and kind of transitioning some of my responsibilities with beer away. So it was a little, interesting to say, to see how the group, has done. And somebody asked me, and I said, I thought we might have a 5-6 year collaborative effort to kind of get some metrics online and kind of be done with it. I never thought it would be going 14 years in. I never thought that, and I also wondered how the transition would be as people left, as some of the strong leading forces behind things, the Robertas, the Steves, the Todds, moved on. Who was going to pick up? Would their company still participate? Would new people still see value in beer? Would there still be this effort? And I'm I don't want to say surprised. I guess I am slightly surprised, very pleased that we've been able to maintain the technical aspects and maintain the value that people see in this type of collaborative effort in such an important area for our company. So a little pride there, I guess parental pride maybe, in seeing how this organization has, and I hesitate to call it an organization, but this roundtable has maintained itself and continues to grow. The fact that we're constantly looking for new members, seeing who wants to either come back, join, and so that's kind of the final thought, so to speak, on how I felt at this meeting.
Well, Paul, I appreciate your time and
No
thank
problem.
you for sharing your thoughts about the roundtable meeting. And
No problem.
it's a pleasure as always.